morning, and welcome to Rocky River High School, home of the Ravens Battalion. My name is Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Allison Alfaro, the Ravens Battalion Commander. At this time, I would like to recognize program attendees. Mr. James Stock McLuhan, our honored presenter. We would also like to welcome his beautiful wife, Cherry. Mr. Stitt, Principal of Rocky River High School. Lieutenant Colonel Easton, the Senior Army Instructor. Cadet Major Veronica Roman, the Special Assistant to the Senior Army Instructor. Cadet Major Heber Morales, Battalion Operation Officer. And lastly, Cadet Major Jennifer Nunez, Battalion XO. I would like to recognize current members of the Armed Services visiting today. Veterans of Foreign War Post 1160, Miss Jane Barnes, family and friends in attendance, Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, staff, and students, and lastly, members of the Ravens Battalion. Please stand for the presenting of colors and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Work time, work. Left turn, work. Color, hold. Present, order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, order. Right, bend, forward, work.
Please be seated. Principal Stitt will now bring greetings.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kwame Stitt, Principal of Rocky River High School, and I would like to welcome our distinguished guests, family, staff, administration, and specifically our award recipient to Rocky River High School. The Medal of Honor Character Development Program teaches the values that we stand on here at Rocky River High School: respect, responsibility, honor, and service. Therefore, it is an even greater honor and privilege to host the presentation of the highest award for military valor and action here at Rocky River High School. Again, welcome.
Integrity, sacrifice, citizenship, and patriotism to students through educationally grounded lessons developed by teachers for teachers. These 6 values are embodied in the Medal of Honor and exemplified in the actions for which it would be awarded. The Character Development Program helps students to recognize and exemplify those 6 values, making them useful as a social-emotional learning resource, as a classroom management system, or as a tool to create a positive and healthy school culture. The entire Medal of Honor Character Development Program is free to educators. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. James Doc McLuhan, our honored presenter.
Sounds like I'm outranked by everybody around here today. Well, you all look very sharp. Let me begin with that. And you'll look back on your times here in the ROTC program as a real builder of character along the way. And because you're in this type of a program, you're going to get just a little bit deeper into the things that we're going to be talking about today, because it's designed that way. Make sure that along the way, you remember those particular leaders at Rocky Ridge that have developed you along the way. Come back and see them. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know that you appreciated the way that they guided you through the program here and prepared you for lots of things. But I'd like to start out with a little quote here that says, "When I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would have not one single bit of talent left, and I could say, I used everything that you gave me, Lord." That's what life is all about. We're not put on this good earth to serve ourselves, we're put on this good earth to serve other people. And it's much more gratifying when we do that. I'm going to start out with a few statistics so you understand where we stand today in terms of the military, in terms of defense of this country and our American values. First of all, there are 331 million people in the United States of America. In all wars, 47 million have worn the various uniforms of the branches of the service. Only 0.5% of our population is wearing a military uniform today. That means that 99.5% of the rest of the population of the United States of America is not wearing a uniform. They're not connected to it like you are. There are only 16,400,000 veterans. Those are people who have worn the uniform in the United States of America today. They are dying at 1,700 per day. And some of those, there's a statistic out there that 22 are taking their own life. That is something that we all need to be concerned with. And it's not just in the military. I know with COVID, everybody kind of joins into that demeanor of knowing that we've gone through some tough times. I'm going to go over, just for reasons of, and maybe you've already learned this, the highest medals that can be presented, in the Army anyway, to an individual. First of all, the oldest medal is the Purple Heart. That actually was developed by President Washington way back in the day. And then, of course, Douglas MacArthur made the Purple Heart a very distinguished an award, because you have to be wounded by an enemy soldier or an enemy Navy or an enemy Air Force or whatever it is to earn that. The next highest is the Bronze Star. The Bronze Star is given for both valor and meritorious service. And I can see that, because being such a high recognition, if you do something well as a leader, like many of you are going to be, then that should be one of those medals that you could get. The Silver Star is the third highest medal in the United States Army, and it is given strictly for valor. And then the Distinguished Service Cross, which in the Navy is the Navy Cross, and in the Air Force is the Air Force Cross. They're all equal. That is the second highest. And then the Medal of Honor. Every one of my brothers will tell you that this is not ours. This is not a Jim McLuhan award. This is an award given to the 89 men who fought in the battle where that medal was earned. And I'm going to give you a little insight. I was a second platoon medic, and the first platoon medic was killed the second day. It was a 48-hour battle. His mother received the Medal of Honor in his honor in 1970. In all of the research that I've done, there is nowhere in the history of the Medal of Honor where two medics from the same company in the same battle received the Medal of Honor. What it says for the group of 89 that went into that battle, what it says is that they were in a very, very brutal situation. situation. We'll cover a little bit more of that later on. Now for the Medal of Honor, a little bit of statistics. Old coaches, you know, we have to have some statistics, or else we're not old coaches anymore. Of the 47 million, excuse me, that have fought in all battles, only 3,516 individuals have received the Medal of Honor. At the present time, I should say half of those were in the Civil War. So when they changed the requirements that you had to actually put your life on the line to receive the Medal of Honor, about 1,700 and some odd people had already received it for some things that weren't all that brave. But since then, only 1,780 have received the Medal of Honor since you had to risk your life. Half of those were given posthumously, like my other medic and first platoon. There are 3,535 medals that have been presented. Now the reason that those two statistics don't match up is that 19 individuals, before they said you can't do this anymore, 19 individuals have received the medal twice. 19 people were given 2 medals. They had to be some pretty brave people. And so these ladies down here are represented. There is one woman who received the Medal of Honor. It is, and I have never said this anywhere. My wife can tell you that because she'll know after I've said this. I really hope that pretty soon they find the valor of a young lady that deserves this medal. That is a very poor representation of us handing out bravery. It's kind of a male thing, isn't it? We need to look at the valor of an individual no matter what their sexual orientation is. And I hope that soon we will find that person in a young lady. The youngest person to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor was 11 years old when he did the action to receive the Medal of Honor. He was a drummer boy for a unit in the Civil War. And when they told everybody to retreat, he kept on drumming and went forward. He received the medal when he was 13, but the action was when he was 11 years old. I hope that doesn't mean I have to leave. These are I loved listening to the character program that you have here. And these are going to overlap with what we have in the Medal of Honor Society. Courage, commitment, citizenship, sacrifice, patriotism, and integrity. Courage. Courage to stand up for what you believe in. Commitment. Fulfilling your verbal and your written contracts. You say you're going to do it. My dad was from an era when a handshake and a verbal commitment was all you needed. You knew it was going to get done. It's not quite so true today. And we're going to turn that around. Citizenship. You're a part of a group all through your life. You have a special group right here. And to be a part of that, you have to give your talents and your skills to that group. Your family, your school, the whole school, you're a part of that group. If you're on an athletic team, you're part of that group. You have a community, you have a family, you have a church. All of those deal with citizenship. Sacrifice. The obligation to other people, as I've said already. We're not put on this earth to serve ourselves. We're here to serve others. And the gentleman and one lady that wear the medal that I have around my neck, they were obligated in their particular area to make sure that they could sacrifice even their life for all of the others around them. I'll be covering that a little bit too. The next one, number 5, patriotism. sometimes feelings aren't right or wrong, feelings just are. I actually learned that from a psychiatrist. Sounds like somebody with a doctorate degree, doesn't it? Feelings are not right or wrong, they just are. And I have this feeling that there's not enough patriotism. And I think part of that is our leaders in Washington need to work together. Will be nominating today a teacher from the state of Michigan who has a class called America at War. And in that class, she brings in veterans. Doesn't matter what their rank is or where they're from. Then she also teaches a class called government. Do you have government here in your class? Okay. One of the things that she says is her goal in that government class, she teaches a lot about the Constitution, a lot about how our government process goes on, about campaigning, voting, so on and so forth. But every once in a while, parties will come in, Democrats and Republican parties will come in. What she does in her classes, she always presents both sides. She says her main goal is at the end of the class that they will not know what party she's affiliated to, whether she's a Republican or a Democrat. And let me tell you, to do that today, it's pretty hard. It's my belief, too, that we should do away with all of that. Just be the leaders in Congress and don't be affiliated. Talk things over and say, what can I do for the high school here in North Carolina called Rocky Ridge? What can I do for them? What can I do for these ladies sitting down here in the positions that they have, being not only moms, but having their own positions? And the gentleman down here with the American Legion hat on, do I have the right hat on, sir? VFW. Very good. I'm a lifetime member of both, so can't go wrong there, can I? So, who am I? You know? I want to tell you that everybody is all alike. When somebody yelled for a medic when I was in Vietnam, I didn't stand up and say, hey, how much do you weigh? What's your cultural background? What church do you go to? What color's your skin? I didn't ask for that. I went out and I did the best that I could to either save that individual or tend to their body if they'd already lost their life. But I found out one thing, no matter what one of those categories I just named, one thing was the same. They all bled red American blood. All of us bleed red American blood. Help me out, Jane, isn't it blue before it hits the skin? Is that true? Before an oxygenation, see that? I'm glad I have a medical expert down here, okay? So, it's blue inside of you, but it's red when it comes out. I grew up in a house on a country road in the state of Michigan. We didn't have electricity in my home until I was 5. We didn't have running water until I was 8 or 9. We had a pump out back, that was our water supply, and we had what's called a two-holder. Some of us know what a two-holder is. It's an outdoor john that my dad had built. One hole was bigger for my mom and dad. Am I going too deep into this, honey? No. And one was small enough so my brothers and I could eat. And I always tell people there was a lot of yellow snow in the wintertime because it was too cold. I never got to that outdoor john. I figured it'd snow the rest of the day and cover it up. But I went to also one-room country school, 1 mile down the road from my house. And you've heard the old saying, it was uphill both ways. Well, it was uphill both ways for my brothers and I because my mom and dad had already left. I'm a blue-collar boy. They left for work. And didn't matter what the weather was. We got our lunch together, put it in a bucket, carried on down to Wood School. There were kindergarten through 8th grade in one room. I spoke to that school last year in the spring. They are still in operation. They have some of the highest scores in the state of Michigan. I knew only a couple of people in town before I moved to town, and we called it town school. My brother and I got on the bus every morning then, 7th and 8th grade, through high school. I was 4'7" when I got on my bus to go to the 7th grade for the first time. Once I became a high school student, though, I had grown immensely. I was 4'10". That was immensely for me. And I graduated at 5'2", so you can see that I'm small in structure, but some things come in small packages. I weighed 135 pounds. They lied on the football roster. They said I was 155, but I guess I hit hard enough that people might have believed me. After I graduated from high school, I went to a small college. I kind of give you a little direction here. It was south of Michigan State University. It's called Olivet. And at Olivet College, I learned that I could participate in sports at that level too. I was a football player for 4 years, and I wrestled for 4 years, and I played baseball for 2 years and earned 11 varsity letters in high school: football, basketball, baseball, and track. And then I earned 7 in college in wrestling, baseball, and football. I got a master's degree when I came back from Vietnam, bachelor's degree from Olivet, of course, and then master's degree when I came back. Well, that's enough about me. So let's take a look at you, and who are you? And I'm going to share a little more in depth what any character development program has to offer you. And I'll start out with a quote by one of my favorite coaches. And now that March Madness is going, I'm sure somewhere along the line you've heard somebody mention on the TV set a guy by the name of John Wooden from UCLA. Gonzaga beat UCLA last night, though. They're out of it now. But John Wooden said this: be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is who you really are, and your reputation is what other people think you are. People thought that the Vietnam veteran was a baby killer, was a person not doing something honorable. They had no idea. And I won't go into that fully right now. But had I not gone to Vietnam, I wouldn't have met some of the guys with some of the best character that you'll ever meet in your life. We also need to be most concerned about what we do today to develop our character. We can learn from what we did in the past, and of course, we always want to plan for the future. But this is the only day that we have right here. So I challenge you in your mind right now, what am I looking forward to looking in the mirror tonight and saying, I learned this or this or this today. Hopefully, I'll be able to help you with that. Seize the day. At the end of the day, make sure you've built your character. Here they are, patriotism. Growing up, I was aware that my grandpa had been in World War I. My father had been in World War II, my uncle in the Korean War, and at that particular time, going through high school, my other uncle just got out of the United States Coast Guard. I was drafted in 1968. Yes, there was a 1968. 22 years old. Signed a contract already to teach and coach in May, graduated in June, but they had other plans for me, and they drafted me. So I know what patriotism is, a love for this country, because it had been an example all the way through the McLuhan clan. You too can be patriotic. Respect yourself and serve others. Everybody in this room, everybody outside of this room, everybody in every state, is an American. We need to respect him. It's a fact that you can't properly respect yourself until you respect others. That is a fact. We're not put on this good earth, I'm going to say it one more time, to serve us. Respect of those in the military. Respect the policemen. If you get stopped in a traffic situation, respect that trooper. Fire department. We can go on and on and on. First responders. Respect and honor our flag. You did it the first thing this morning. You respected the flag. I spoke, my wife was with me at the high school that I graduated from on a Veterans Day, and their superintendent said that his students, every one of his students, has to stop at a flag, and he had them all through the hallways. They had to stop at a flag sometime during the morning, pass them to another class, whatever it was, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Does anybody out here know how long it takes to say the Pledge of Allegiance? How long? 30? 11 seconds. He said, my students, with all that's been done for them, so that they can walk freely through these halls and choose many, many things throughout their life, 11 seconds can be given to that flag, which is representative of all Americans, not just military. Commitment. Now, sometimes this one's a hard one. It's the second color, and as a combat medic, I had to be committed to my job. It was a big job. It was a very scary job at times. I'll get on to courage in just a minute. I had that, but still, under certain circumstances, it was very scary. But no matter what I faced, no matter what the wound of a soldier was, I had to be committed to that job. I also knew that I was committed to what I wanted to be, which is a teacher and coach. But once I was drafted, I realized that my thinking had to change, and I had to be committed to the United States of America, to the U.S. Army, and to my men in my unit. You too need to be committed in being the best student and person that you can be. Listen to your teachers, to your parents, to your coaches and administrators. Listen to anybody in a leadership position, because they're going to help you with this commitment thing. My dad used to say before we would be disciplined, I'll put it that way, before we faced the belt. And it didn't happen too often, because once I got a couple of the facings of the belt, I realized I didn't want to face that again. He always said, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. I thought after that first one, it cannot hurt him worse than it's hurting me. No way. But once I became a parent, and I had to discipline my children, my athletes, my students, whatever the situation was as a mentor, that I had to make sure that I had to be committed. Remember, it is hard for you sometimes to be committed to something, but if you really believe in it, it won't be that hard. Be the best that you can be. My father told me at a young age, Jim, if you're given a job, you do it to the best of your ability. You never do it halfway, and you do it until the job is finished. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is the third pillar that I'm going to address right now, and it would be, in the military, you would die for the United States of America's values. You would sacrifice even your life, which half of the individuals that were awarded the Medal of Honor did. More than half have been awarded posthumously. Am I saying that right, school teacher? Posthumously? Posthumously. If you marry an English teacher, be ready to be corrected. But I really appreciate it so many times. Yes. So, in that battle, 48-hour battle, 13 men sacrificed the ultimate. And over 40 out of the 89 that went in were very badly wounded, and I worked on them. The second day I was the only medic left to work on the entire company. I was wounded the first day, ordered to get on a helicopter that night. I had, after being wounded, I had enough things to...
Teachers at this time, seniors are being released from their senior meeting in the cafeteria and in class. Please allow my class at the time. Seniors, never call seniors in Georgia to say why as you get released from your senior meeting in the cafeteria. Thank you.
I like that. It brings me back to my teaching days. Yeah. And so I was asked to get on a helicopter. I'd been wounded earlier that evening, and that's when I realized that I had been hit with shrapnel from a rocket propellant grenade and pelted in the head and my entire body. Looked down and I had blood all over me. And I had, during that battle that night, looked in the distance to New Yon Hill, which was our mission to take over New Yon Hill. And it was about 3/4 of a mile to a mile away, and it looked like lava coming down off that hill. There was that many people on that hill. Now there was only 89 of us. We found out later there was 2,700 enemy soldiers against 89 of us. So I looked at that man and I said, I'm not getting on. And he said, why? And I only said this because he had not been out there and saw what I saw. I said, you're going to need me. Now, I really thought by saying that I wasn't getting on that I just spent my last day on earth. But I'd rather be dead in a rice paddy than alive in a hospital and know that one of my men the next day would lose his life because Jim McLuhan, the medic, wasn't there to do his part as the team. Sometimes your position in life may require you to sacrifice things. I hope you never have to sacrifice your life and be placed in that situation. But whatever it is that you're sacrificing, your time, your authority, whatever it is, make sure that you're ready to do that. And then you'll be able to do it, like my dad said, never do it halfway. He was speaking in my ear when I decided I wasn't going to get on. The next one, are we moving along pretty good here? My wife will go like this. It's going too long like that. No. Next one is citizenship. It is a tough one sometimes because we may not want to be a part of a certain group, but because my particular curriculum in college required me to take certain classes, there were some classes that I looked at and I said, ooh, I really don't want to face that class, you know. Ooh, I don't really want to go out into the kill zone and possibly get killed, you know, but I'm part of the team. I'm going to do it. Greater love has no individual, man or woman, or child, than to lay down their life for someone, for something. My wife said to her classes often, there should be something that you would die for. Think about that. Someday you'll have children. You would die. You would rather die than have that child die first. Or whatever you could do to save that child. You're a part of the family. And sometimes your part on your shoulders, being in this ROTC program in your school, it weighs a little heavy, but you're a part of that group. I'm going to tell you a story about a young man that was 13 years old. and I think Jane might remember this man. His name was Virgil Smith, 13 years old, when he did something so valorous that the Medal of Honor Society gave him a medal for his courage. He lived down in Texas, and a Hurricane Harvey, came through, and before they knew it, the entire streets were flooded. And his best friend, who lived close by, yelled for him, "Virgil! Virgil!" So he took a mattress from his house, got on the mattress, and went over to his friend's house. Put his friend on the mattress, took him to safe ground. Went back, got his sister and baby, took them to safe ground. Went back, got his mom and his dad, took them to safe ground. He did this for 17 people. 17. A 13-year-old boy. Oh, and I did tell you this, he can't swim. So he was a part of a situation where he needed to save these people who were facing the same thing he was facing. This is a dire thing to be facing. And another thing, the next morning when they went through where he had crossed over and back and forth and back and forth, there were alligators in there. He didn't know that. He didn't think about it. His part in that situation was to save his friend's family, and many others. You are a part sometimes of a big team. I think that what you're doing right now is a big team. I think the ROTC program is a huge team. And so be committed to that. I want to read you something that I feel is a good example of what went on May the 13th through the 15th. It's 48 hours. And I actually read this when I was inducted into the Heroes Hall of Fame at the Pentagon the day after I received the medal. And this is really, really what it's all about. This medal is about love. A love so deep in the souls of 89 men that it truly is immeasurable. It's about a group of individuals, some were still boys, who either were drafted or volunteered to serve their country. We came from every part of this great nation. We took our basic and individual advanced training and ended up family in a place far different from the hometowns that we grew up in. We started out loyal to our country and the United States Army, but soon discovered that getting as many of us out alive and back to the world would be our main goal. We became first fast friends, then soon brothers. Brothers that were so deeply attached that we were often called blood brothers. Deeper than our brothers back home. I had two back home. Each of us had a part in the survival that we were thrown into, and we took our jobs very seriously. As a combat medic, I knew that I would do anything for my brothers, and I also was confident that they would do anything for my survival too. I had what I call a positive job in a negative situation. I was trained to save lives and to make those who were sick and diseased better. And as I said before, my father said, if you're given a job like that, you don't do it halfway. He instructed me that you will never give up no matter what. It was my duty as a combat medic to save lives, and I strove to do the right thing, which is one of the other pillars that we're going to be talking about in a minute. But make no mistake, when my commander told the battalion commander that what he was sending us into was a flawed mission, he was absolutely right. We had no idea how many soldiers, enemy soldiers, were in there, and we didn't know what kind of firepower they had, what kind of weapons they had. Morale was a little bit low, and when we marched into Tam-Key for the battle for Nuyan Hill, we were down to 89 men. But we stuck together. This group, this citizenship group stuck together. We fought for each other's lives with our backs to the wall. With the enemy heavily outnumbering us 30-1, we held our ground and battled with all of our might. Greater love has no man than to give down his life for another. And that's what we did May 13th through the 15th, 1969, as Charlie Company was willing to give their lives to save each other. We walked out of that battle the morning of the 15th, blood brothers, literally blood brothers. There weren't too many that didn't have their blood on them. The love we had for each other had conquered the enemy. They moved out, and we were still standing. Integrity. As far as I'm concerned, integrity is one of the best of those particular pillars that we have. Integrity simply means doing the right thing. Even though nobody else is looking, you need to do the right thing. Just recently I read a book that my wife took out of the library, and there's courage and then there's moral courage. It might not be the popular thing to do, but if you do it because it's the right thing, that's moral courage. I don't know what you're going to face in your lifetime, but when you do, lean on this. You'll get this gut level feeling about something, and that will tell you that the moral courage that you can gain in that particular moment will be very valuable. A little bit about you and integrity. Say no to alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. Still a popular thing. Some drugs are so popular that once you start on them, they got you. You don't have them anymore. They got you. But if you have integrity and say, I'm not dealing with this, I'm not getting started on this, don't steal anything. Don't take anything that's not yours. A little story about a junior high student. The very first year I came back from Vietnam, and our jobs at the beginning of the day was to watch the kids out front because they like to play around out in the lawn before they had to go in and sit in the classroom for the rest of the day. This little boy came up to me with a paper bag, you know, the brown paper bag to put a sandwich in and take to school. And there was a couple $100 in there, cash. Well, most people don't put a couple $100 in a bag like that. It's usually a drug deal or something that probably wasn't the right thing. So he asked me what he should do, and I told him, I said, well, just take it to the office. Now, he's pretty innocent, you know. Maybe you know some people would have said, heck, I wouldn't even ask Mr. McLuhan what to do with that. I got myself a couple $100. There are people out there that think along that line. That spring, that was in the fall that he did that. That spring they called that young man to the office. Now isn't it strange that nobody showed up to claim that money? That'll tell you that it probably wasn't the right thing to be involved in. They gave him the money because nobody came to claim it. Now, you might not always get a couple $100 because you did the right thing, but the satisfaction is in doing the right thing along the way. I'm going to tell you about the biggest lesson that I learned in Vietnam. It was the second day, somebody yelled, "Medic!" Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And right away, your instinct as a medic, mine anyway, I just woke up about 200 students. The instinct for me was to jump up and go towards whoever hollered medic. It was about my 7th or 8th trip into what's called a kill zone. The kill zone is when the enemy is firing at you, my men are firing at the enemy, and I'm in between the two trying to save an individual. He had a stomach wound. I knew right away, I could see some of the organs trying to seep out, that I needed to get pressure bandages on that, and I couldn't move him. So I'm a sitting duck. I got hit with an AK-47 round, kept right on working, got the pressure bandages on. I didn't eat or drink anything for that 48-hour battle. This is one of those times why I didn't drink my water, because I needed it. Took it out, poured it on the bandages, because if I didn't, his insides might dry up. The organs might dry up. We needed to keep it moist. I got that on there, and I dragged him very gently into this trench line that was left by the French when they fought the Vietnamese way back in the day. And I'm thinking, how am I going to carry this guy out? I can't throw him over my shoulder with a fireman carry, or everything that I just did will come undone. So I finally had decided that I would put him like a baby in my arms and hold the bandages against my chest, which would give more pressure to holding those on. And I would get his look. This is one of the times I was glad I was short. Okay? There are good things about being short. Okay? And this was one of those times. I would carry him, and I'd get as low as I could, and we'd go through the crossfire, hoping that we wouldn't get hit. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a thought came over me. It had been since I was a small boy that I had told my father that I loved him. In the 1940s and 50s, and even into the 60s, into my high school and college days, men didn't say that to each other. I knew my dad loved me, and I assumed that he knew and I loved him. But we hadn't said, I love you, to each other. So I had a conversation with the man upstairs. And I said, Lord, if you get me out of this hell on earth, so that I can look my dad in the face just one more time and tell him that I love him, I'll be the best coach, I'll be the best teacher, and I'll try to be the best dad that I can possibly be. And this incredible peace came over me. I can't describe it. I don't believe we're puppets on a string where the Lord can save Jim McLuhan over here and let somebody else die over there. But the Holy Spirit, it moves. And although I was very cautious about what I did as a medic, I became more cautious, quicker, but more accurate. I ran to my father in the O'Hare Airport, threw my arms around my dad, and I said those 3 words for the first time in a long time. And he said the same 3 right back at me, as if we'd been doing that all of our life. I was 24 at the time. It was our greeting and our departure from then on. And I taught my children, my grandchildren, my athletes, even the 72 assistant coaches that I had, my 38 years of coaching. Those are macho words. You tell people that you love them. I'm giving you an assignment. You didn't think you were getting out of here with an old teacher not giving you an assignment, do you? You're going to today, I know you got somebody out there, not on purpose, never do we do this on purpose, but you've been kind of busy and your life has taken you this way or that way. You're going to call that person, or you're going to see him if you can see him personally. And you're going to say those 3 words to him. You're going to tell them, I love him. And the second part of the assignment, tell them why you love them. Very proud. I see people already getting their assignment done out there. Sometimes I hear shouts, I love you, Mr. McLuhan. Well, my assignment's done, right? And they do. I can tell by their response that they do. As a combat medic, let me and with this, as a combat medic, I held 18, 19, and 20-year-olds in my arms. I heard their last words, and I watched them take the last breath of life. I can tell you that the freedom that we enjoy here in this auditorium today has been paid for in full. They are who any of us that wear the uniform say are the real heroes. To give that much is beyond even expectation. Ronald Reagan said it best about those individuals. They really gave up 2 lives. Think about it. They gave up the life that they were living at the time, but they gave up the life that they never got to live. They never got to find their soulmate and marry, be present for the birth of a child, watch that child graduate, maybe be a coach along the way, be a great dad. They never got to walk their little girl down the aisle and then dance that father-daughter dance in the ceremony at the end of the wedding, at the wedding reception. And every holiday, every special event, birthday, anniversary, any kind of reunion, they're not there. They gave up 2 lives so that you and I can have the one that we live each and every day. Now I'm going to move into the question and answer. Do you want me to do these questions here first? Oh, all right. See that? It's my turn to follow. Her turn to lead. You got the courage to use this? Atta girl.
So the Raven Battalion juniors and seniors were required to conduct a close viewing and read of the Medal of Honor video and Mr. McCulloch's citation. At this time, here are a few questions. How were you able to stay focused and persevere through all the pain and chaos during the span of 2 days?
Can you hear this? I don't think this is on. Yeah, it's on now. Oh. Can you hear this? Oh, here. We'll share. I was taught when I was a little kid, share. I had 2 brothers. Had to share. Well, I tell a lot of people, and this is true, that being an athlete, I could tell when a young man walked into our unit, we were sent over individually, we didn't go over to Vietnam as units, and I could tell if they were an athlete just by the way that they carried themselves. Football, 4 years of college football, 4 years of college wrestling allowed me to have what I call not only physical strength, but mental strength. The mental discipline that I learned from athletics, and especially those 2 combat sports. And believe me, if you get hit by a 280-pound tackle and you're only 160 pounds yourself, it is a combat sport. Those 2 sports allowed me to focus during chaotic situations. Also, my upbringing, your school, my school, people that brought me up, jobs that I had. You can always learn something and become better people by the character that you gain from the jobs that you have. So, all of my life I have been prepared for that.
Thank you. And you mentioned your comrades were frozen in fear. What kept you level-headed during the engagement?
What's that?
You mentioned your comrades were frozen in fear. What kept you level-headed during your engagement?
Oh. Yeah, that was right after I was hit, by the way, with the fragmentation from the rocket-propelled grenade. And although it stung, I knew what I had to do. They were frozen, which means they were so afraid that they couldn't even move. So I knew that I was going to have to be the one to take them across this berm that I had jumped up on and get them into the safety of the trench. You cannot believe how strong you can get. One of them weighed a little over 200 pounds and the other about 185, and I dragged both of them at the same time. I don't know if I could do that right now even, into that trench line. So I think it's part of the adrenaline, which is our bodies are designed that way to become strong. I've heard stories where women had their dryers catch on fire, and it took 2 grown men to put their dryer in the basement, and they carried it out of the basement and out to the lawn so it didn't burn the house down. So you can get very, very strong when you need to.
Thank you. As a longtime educator, coach, and mentor, what are some sports or activities you would recommend to today's youth?
Let's go with the basic one. Get out there and walk. Make sure that you exercise. We had a driver that told us, I can't remember which event we were just recently, he said, what a lot of people don't do, and I'm one of them, is stretch in the morning. And that's a basic thing. So stretch, walk. I would say any sport you can get into is good for you. I was at my brother's induction into he was a coach too, into his high school that he taught and coached at, Hall of Fame. And there was a gal there that was on that soccer team in 1997 that won the world title. And her coach told them after that was all over, now I want you to go back home and I want you to, don't even touch a soccer ball. I want you to go out for a sport. Number one, you'll learn something. Maybe you didn't know that sport before. Number two, there'll be a certain kind of people that'll be in that sport, and you'll gain new friends, and you'll learn new things about that particular person or that particular group. So anything that you can do it. Do it today.
And the last question for right now. Given the current state of our country with mass shootings and other drama-filled current events, do you feel your sacrifice was worth it?
I have a little thing that I say when people say, thank you for your service. And this is what I say. You were worth it. You were worth it. I look back on my service, and I'm just one individual. There have been 47 million individuals who made it worth it for you. You think that some of those, in the 1776 war and the Civil War, well, that's so long ago they had nothing to do with you. Yes, they did. They formed this country. We can even think about them as being an individual that thought about the unborn and that they could be able to grow up in a society. As far as the country today, yeah, there's a lot of things going on in this country, but I want you to remember one thing. This is the thing that makes me feel confident that things will get straightened out. We are still one nation under God. He still has a hand in all of this. And don't think that we weren't screwed up a few times along the way, too, in our history. Things will straighten out. That was a good question.
I would now like to ask the audience if they had any questions they would like to ask Mr. McLuhan. Yes.
Yeah, speak up. Yeah, look at it. Courage.
Do you still struggle with your mental health after that situation?
About a year ago, I was asked to be on a panel at what was a mixed base, where all of the branches were on this same base. And it was only March, and they had 3 suicides already. And they were anticipating that there was that possibility that, so they asked us to form a panel, and I was the leader of the panel. And one of the things that I want to tell you, this isn't just about the military now, it's happened all over the place. First of all, have a best friend. Always have a best friend that you can talk anything, anywhere with. And be a best friend. If you see somebody struggling, be with them. Also, your thought process is very important. Make sure you're thinking in the right direction. If you concentrate on doing things for other people, then you're going to find a great satisfaction, and it will uplift you and take you out of a depressed state. And if you get out there and be a part of a group, as we've talked, you'll find out that there's a lot of people that have worse things going on than you do. I'm not saying that your problems aren't legitimate, okay? One year when I was working with a lady on some VA benefits as a soldier, she said, you know, you ought to go and talk with Brian. He's in the office across here from me. I said, Brian? Yeah, I said, why would I want to talk with Brian? I mean, this came out of nowhere, but she was detecting what you're talking about, that I had some PTS. I call it PTS because it's not a disease. PTSD, it's not a disease. It's something that happens to a lot of us in civilian life and military. She said he's just real interesting. So I made an appointment to talk with Brian. And Brian saved my life. You know, if you cut your leg, you'll go to the emergency room where there's people that know what to do to stop the bleeding and maybe even save your leg. So why, when we have some trouble with our thinking, do we not go to someone who is professional and knows how to help us? We're going to have to help ourselves, but help us get through that PTS that I had. Didn't realize it fully that I had it. Oh, did I mention to you that my master's degree is in guidance and counseling? But I couldn't get out of that myself. And again, I was smart enough to listen to somebody that knew something and was reading something in me to go to a professional. And we became friends, which was great. Some days I'd counsel him. My counseling came in pretty good. Why? He was a Marine, paraplegic, in a wheelchair. He was at my ceremony with his father, who's a Vietnam veteran. Brian saved my life. Don't be afraid to go someplace and get some help if you're feeling badly about something, and if you're really feeling very deeply concerned about something. Please, go to a friend, go to somebody that can help.
Throughout the generations and how everyone was growing up throughout all these years, what would you recommend the new generation to do from what you've seen from your generation? Like, what have you seen different occur?
Well, we all have struggles. That's a great question, too. We all have struggles. Can you hear me without the mic? Yes. We all have struggles, so it doesn't matter what generation you're in. They change a little bit, but they all involve some kind of emotion or some kind of mental struggle, okay? I always tell everyone that there are two things, two ingredients that will help you become a success. One are your habits. You have some bad habits that aren't going to help you. Good habits. The second thing is your thought. It's biblical. As a man thinketh, so he doeth. People who commit big crimes, these school shootings, I'll guarantee you that those people were thinking in the wrong direction, and all of a sudden they made it happen. Well, if you think in the other direction, you can make it happen. A little boy from a country school, Michigan, you know what? You can earn and well learn. Doesn't matter how tall you are, but you're right. There are struggles. And again, meet those struggles head on. You already have a step up on people because you're in a program that will help you develop that strength to do that. And you can do it. Believe me. I'm telling you, I know that. I'm standing here telling you that I know you can. I always said, let me get back to what you talked about. As a young boy, I always said we weren't poor, we just didn't have any money. You hear that? Money doesn't make you poor or rich. You are rich or poor in the life that you lead and that you live. I hope someday that, remember that first saying that I read to you. I hope someday that you'll stand before the Lord and say, Lord, I gave it all, I got nothing left. And He will look at you and say, well done, my servant, well done. And welcome you into a place that all of us need to set our goals and our minds and our eyes on, that eternal life.
Additionally, students answered the following prompt. Given a chance to speak with Mr. McLuhan privately, what is something you would like to say to him? I will now read you some of the quotes from these students. You have inspired me to become a better person, and I have a completely new look on life. After all of your sacrifice, I hope you were able to enjoy the life you wanted. I wish there were more people like you, people that cared more about others than themselves. Thank you for all your efforts and sacrifices you made for not only one generation, but as you continue now, even with this program, I am sorry that it took so long for many to appreciate you. Your story will not be known or remembered by all, but those who do know you will be blessed with the courage of a hero.
Sir, thank you so much for coming to Rocky River. You have provided your view on life lessons as a bridge for our future. On behalf of the Ravens Battalion, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Alfaro will now present you with two small tokens of our appreciation, our battalion coin and one of our motivational rocks.
Battalion, attention! Present arms! Sir, we salute you. Order, arms! Battalion, take your seats. This concludes the program. Thank you all for attending.